proclaiming loud freedom from the grave, the sacrifice that gave me life so I could sing again. Jesus Christ, it's by your love we will sing with all our hearts to the one who is reigning over us. He has come, victorious we say. He is one, and we are made alive. Jesus, Savior, our Redeemer, you are here with us. Jesus, Savior, our salvation, our hearts shine for you. We shine, yeah, we shine. We will sing with all our hearts to the one who is reigning over us. He has come, victorious we say. He is one, and we are made alive. We will sing with all our hearts to the one who is reigning over us. He has come, victorious we say. He is one, and we are made alive. We shine, yeah, we shine. Oh, we shine for you. I stand before you now, the greatness of your renown. I have heard of the majesty and wonder of you, King of heaven. In humility I bow as your love in wave after wave crashes over me.
calling you out. Hello, hello, hello. I haven't been up here in a while, but something really unlucky happened to me. I was on Zoom during the snowstorm, and my dog jumped up on my keyboard, hit my space bar on my keyboard, which unmutes you in front of the whole class. So my whole biology class heard me yelling at my dog to get off my computer, asking her if she wanted my pepperoni. And my biology professor said, "What's wrong?" And then he muted me. So, embarrassing moment for you guys. She did. What did I say? She did, and she loved it. It was for my Lunchable. Classy. I gotta find this text from Hannah for the announcements. Okay, announcements. Guess what? This weekend. What's this weekend? Woo! Claps, 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 claps. And if you are so excited but you can't go, it's not too late to sign up. It's $55, and it's at Camp Ileana. And is that Ileana? Ileana? Ileana. Oh. Okay, Ileana. We'll be talking and going back to the life of Jesus. Important in all caps. There will be no Sunday service. What's on Sunday? Yeah. If you need some church recommendations around town, ask and you shall receive. Looking ahead, there's a worship night coming up in a couple Wednesdays, so be here for that. Just don't stand next to me. You don't want to hear me sing. Then coming up, we've got Guys and Girls Weekends. The real party is at the Girls Weekend. Don't forget about service trips coming up. You can sign up. And now I want you to stand up. Stand up. Everybody's so slow. Find somebody wearing the same color shirt as you. Greet them while we welcome the worship team. Claps.
Don't die. There you go. All right, it sounds like it's getting quieter, so that's my cue to get going. All right, so were we here last week? It feels different this week. Were we in person this? Weird. Well, glad to see you all again. Apparently didn't notice you last week. But glad you guys are all here. We have an awesome night of worship and learning and listening. So this first song that we have, it's new to some of us, newer song, and it is called Love Song. And you know, type of worship songs that I'm like typically drawn to are the ones that remind me of God's character, who He is. And with these first two, especially, I kind of just want us to focus upward, if that makes sense. You know, if there's a time to leave everything that's happening on campus, just drop it, just lay it down, let it go, and focus on one thing. And it's just how amazing and glorious and wonderful and righteous and holy our God is. Just whatever way that you connect, that's my prayer for this evening. And with that, let's go ahead and start worshiping. taught these lungs how to breathe. Who could break every fear? And with one word, darkness flees. Who gives strength to the weak? You are the Lord, and you love me. Let this be a love song rising up to your heart. Let this be a love song, God. You can have it all, Lord. Every breath I am yours. Let this be a love song, God. Who can heal every pain? And with one touch, blind I see. Who could rise from the dead? You are the Christ, and you love me. So let this be a love song rising up to your heart. Let this be a love song, God. You can have it all, Lord. Every breath I am yours. Let this be a love song, God. You are God. In you we trust. You chose love. You chose us. Sing it out. Yes, you are God. In you we trust. You chose love. You chose us. One more time. You are God. And you are God. In you we trust. And you chose love. You chose us. And let this be a love song rising up to your heart. Let this be a love song, God. You can have it all, Lord. Every breath I am yours. Let this be a love song, God. Before you formed the earth. Before you formed the earth, you knew and loved me first. How great is your love? Before you formed the earth, you knew and loved me first. How great is your love? Jesus is in this room, here right now, making this place I stand, holy ground, holy ground. Your spirit moves and breathes all around, all around. we thank you. We love you. Thank you for this place and everyone in this room. Be with CW tonight as he brings us the message and a bit of his story. I pray that we hear you and only you. And we love you so much, Lord. And it's in your son's name we pray. Amen. So go ahead and have a seat, you guys.
Hello, everyone. I'm Piper Graham. I'm here with CW. We are from Chicago, actually BridgeBuilders. You saw the little slide with our pretty logo with the Chicago skyline, which you could come see this summer, the Chicago skyline. World-class work of art. So BridgeBuilders, we are at a holistic community development center on the south side of Chicago. Our overall ministry is called Sunshine Gospel Ministries. We do things from youth outreach to case management work to social enterprises. But BridgeBuilders is the program that we are inviting you all to come and participate this summer in May. BridgeBuilders is a blast. It's an experiential service learning trip where we learn about justice and faith and we talk through real issues, but we also have a lot of fun. CW, if you've seen some stickers, just floating around, he performs a little concert, and we get to celebrate Black culture through food and music, and we learn the rich history of our neighborhood, which is very broken but also beautiful. And so you'll learn a lot about Chicago. The history of even our whole nation is just in the few blocks around our ministry. If you've heard of the story of Emmett Till, his home is in Woodlawn. And then I don't know if anyone's read A Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry, but her home's also in Woodlawn. So we get to go on a tour, and there's the opportunity to just explore Chicago throughout your time there, and to serve with amazing community partners who have been in ministry and in the work of community development for decades. So we would love to have you this summer. If you have any questions, we'll be sticking around tonight. Feel free to come up and ask. But I'm going to introduce C.W. Allen. He's going to come and bring the word for you all tonight.
Thanks, Piper. All right. Make sure I got this right. Can you hear me fine? All good? Yep. It's green. It is green. It's unmuted. Uh-oh. We bind you, Satan. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, there we go. The enemy will not have his way tonight. My name is C.W. Allen, and tonight I'm going to just share my story. No heavy, lengthy, exegetical text that I'm going to break down. Not this time, but I'm going to get that to y'all one day. But today I'm going to just share my story and give you a little bit of who I am. So hopefully it intrigues you to some capacity where you stay awake. Now listen, in the Bible, there's a situation where Paul is preaching, and this dude falls asleep, and then he falls back, and he falls out the building, and he dies. So if y'all fall asleep on me, it might be a wrap for you. So just saying. Is this fine how it's placed? Am I good? Okay. Cool. Up there I have a phone number, a text number. So if you want to connect with me more or hear a little bit more about what I'm doing musically, with speaking, all of that stuff, feel free to text the number to ask you for your info. By law, I won't see your real personal info, so you ain't got to worry about that, but we can text. It's like a one-to-one text system that I use, so dope, so feel free to patronize that. But let's go to the next slide. So I'm just a kid from Cleveland. I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, 1986. Woo, that's a long time ago. Oh, man. Yo, old butt. But I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. I am a Cavs, Browns, Guardians fan. Ohio State, fan. That's just where I'm from. I was born into it. I can't help it, so don't hold it against me. But I was born to C.W. Allen Sr. my dad, and my mother, Shirley Moss Allen. And as a kid, I was a very fun kid. I loved laughing and entertaining. I had no idea that God would place me on a track to be an artist or speaker or anything like that. Like, I just loved people. And, oh, you can stay at the first one for me. Thank you so much. Sorry, I'll give you better cues. I know I'm like jacking you up. You're like, I'm doing my job. Don't fire me. So that's me with the big afro. I was 2 years old. And then the picture above, the one that's laying down to the left is my little brother. Then I'm the one who's putting the thumb up. I thought I was Sonic, so I was doing the Sonic pose. Sega Genesis, and then my dad is the one laying in the middle. But one thing I didn't realize early on is that my mother and father were drug addicts. They were both drug addicts, cocaine, all of it. And so much so that I don't remember this, but my mom told me that when I was 2, we were going to take a family trip to Virginia for the family reunion. And they got so high in the car, I was in the back seat, that they just circled around the city for like 5 hours, just getting high. And eventually, my mom and dad broke up. They were great friends at first, but I think just the drug use and the tension of the relationship, they just end up getting a divorce. And we found ourselves living with my grandmother on the east side of Cleveland with my mom. And I couldn't fully understand why I couldn't be with my mom and my dad like I had known most of my life. And at this point, I was 6, so I was changing schools. Life was just different. And my mom was working swing shifts, so that meant like every week her job hours changed. So I would see my mom, but I wouldn't see my mom. And then eventually, I remember hearing from my mom over the phone that she was in rehab. I didn't fully comprehend what that meant, but I knew something wasn't right. And so that's the beginning of my childhood. Let's go to the next slide. So this is me in high school. I'm the skinny one with the Donathan McNabb jersey. I know y'all looking at me like, dang, brother, you really lost yourself. But you grow up, you keep getting old, you're going to lose yourself too. No, I'm just kidding. To the far left over there is a picture of me running cross country. I loved running. I've started back running, so I love it again. But I was, just a kid in school. I loved everyone. I played multiple sports. I ran track and cross country. And I also was a student who did the morning announcements. I was a sports guy. So it was like early on, God had kind of given me this gift to communicate, but I never really saw it as a gift for me proclaiming his glory. So actually, early in my high school career, around 14 years old, I had this encounter with God that really rocked me and took me aback. So actually a little bit before that, I was 12. I took a trip to Michigan, and we were visiting my aunt and uncle. And I had never been outside the city because, remember, both of my parents were drug addicts. So family vacations, things like that, the money was used on drugs. And so the idea of going out of town was exciting to me. My uncle said I could come spend some time with him in Southfield, Michigan. So I went readily and spent the summer with my uncle. And I didn't know this, but one of my cousins was actually a young guy who was studying to be a minister. And if you're from the hood, you probably know this. If you're from the hood and you're not from a church-going family, church is on Easter or Christmas. That's when you get your suit. That's when you go to church. And then you might get baptized somewhere in between that. And that's kind of like what it means to know God. So I was with this cousin who was studying to be a minister, and we're playing Mortal Kombat. And I kid you not, he does a fatality on me. So Scorpion pulls back the draw, Skull is out, blowing fire everywhere. And for some reason, it prompted me to ask my cousin, do you think the world's coming to an end in 2000? Now, this is 1999, months before 2000 is coming. And I'm 12 years old, right? And he goes, I do. And I said, wait, what? Like, no, you're supposed to say you don't believe that. And he says, I do. Now, of course, that didn't happen. He had some crazy theology, but that's a whole nother story. But then my cousin, he sees the anxiousness in my face, and he goes, but do you know Jesus? And I'm like, yeah, of course I know Jesus. Everybody know Jesus. Like, he a part of the hood. We all know Jesus. And my cousin proceeds and he says, Actually, Dub, there's a difference between knowing about God and knowing God. And I had never heard that concept before. I seen Jehovah Witness riding around and the Mormons on their bikes, but like, everybody avoid the Jehovah Witness. You duck down when they knock on the door. Ohio State playing, go away. But no one had ever told me you could actually have a personal relationship with God. I always thought church was just like this place you went and yelled and just had a good time for a little bit, and then you went home and act however you act. And so for the first time, I heard about this idea of a relationship, and my cousin told me it's as simple as asking God to forgive you for your sin and turning from that sin and beginning a relationship with him, believing that he died and rose from the grave for you. And that night, my life was drastically changed forever because I believed that Jesus was who he said he was when my cousin showed it to me in the Bible. Now, I wasn't perfect. I had no idea what I did. I didn't have someone to go back to when I got home. The dope boys thought I was crazy because I said I wanted to be a preacher because I was just this young, excited kid. And they thought I was the dumbest thing in the world, like a preacher. Boy, get out of here. It was the craziest thing, but God had began this work in my heart. So when I stepped into high school, I knew God, but I didn't have any anchor or no one to encourage me. And so I found myself just following the trends of all my friends and looking the same, acting the same, talking the same. And it wasn't until I got in, so God allowed me to get plugged into Youth for Christ, but it was still this up and down battle as I was going to this youth group, just trying to figure it out. But then I was at cross country practice one day, and this was my junior year of high school, and I remember it like it was yesterday. We had just finished our run, and I had beat the team down, so I'm cheering on my teammates as they come. I'm cussing, doing my thing like, yo, get here, just being a good captain. And this girl comes up to me after, and she was a friend who also went to my youth group, and she looks at me, and with a non-judgy tone, without needing to drill in me or say anything deeper, she just said, "You're different here than you are at church." She didn't call me a hypocrite. She didn't call me a liar. That's all she said to me. And this wasn't a girl who was like a pastor's kid, like she was doing some crazy stuff. I really believe it was God using her to drastically change my life in that moment, because it cut my heart so much that for the next few weeks, I just wrestled with who I was as a person. Am I really a Christian? Do I really believe this? Can I really be serious about this based on where I live and who I am? And I ultimately came out on the other side of it with yes. Now, it doesn't mean life was perfect after, but God grabbed my heart my junior year of high school, and I was never the same. Let's go to the next one. So I get through high school, had a great high school career. I enjoyed it and loved it. And I went to this conference. It's called the Impact Conference. It's a ministry of crew. And there's this pastor up there, and he's speaking, and he's also a hip-hop artist. His name is The Ambassador, and he's talking about Jesus inviting his disciples to throw their net over the boat. And he says, throw it over the boat and you'll catch fish. But it's an area where fish normally wouldn't be at during a certain time of the day. And so it seems super crazy. So they throw the net over, and then they haul more fish than the net can carry. It says that the net was breaking, it was so many fish. These are fishermen that Jesus is telling them how to fish, and he's not a fisherman. He's a carpenter. And it says that they realized that there was something different about Jesus, and they followed him. And he says, see, God doesn't just do it, he overdoes it. You have plans, but God has a better plan for your life. God doesn't just do it, he overdoes it. And the reason I share that story is because this next part of my journey, it was very important for me to learn that lesson personally. So at this point, I'm done with high school. I'm burnt out from college because I actually started college in my 10th grade year of high school. So, I was tired of college. I took a couple years off, and when I was around 21, I felt like God was calling me to ministry. So I said, well, I need to look at Bible colleges. So there was one school I took a visit to, and it was perfect. It was called Moody Bible Institute. It was in downtown Chicago. They were teaching good stuff. It was just like a dope situation for me. So I decided I'm going to apply for Moody. So I applied for Moody. I put in the application. They said, get it in by April. I did. You'll hear something by October. Cool. Also applied to another school called Lancaster Bible College, the place that my hero, the preacher that I heard say God overdoes it, went to school. So I said, it's near Philly. That's dope. I could do that. I could do that. So I applied to both. Time goes by, and we're getting to around, it's actually November. And the admission counselor calls me, and she's like, hey, C-Dub, you coming down to Moody? And I'm like, y'all didn't want me. I ain't heard nothing. I didn't even hear I didn't even get a rejection letter. I just figured they said, forget it. You ain't ready. And so I went and took a nap, forgot about it. After I told her that, she said, well, let me check. Let me see something. So she goes and finds my application in so I was going to come in spring 2009. They found my application in the fall 2008 pile. So that means someone hadn't even reviewed my application. So I didn't even get an opportunity. So she finds my application, the board reviews it that day, and they're like, you're in. So now I'm like, oh, shoot, I'm in the Bible college. Also get a letter from Lancaster, you're in. So now I got these two Bible colleges that seem great. Of course, I want to go to Moody. So I call her back. I'm like, all right, when I get there, who do I talk to about loans, to get a loan from the institution so that I can go to school, all of that? Because, I'm broke. I ain't got bread to be paying y'all. And so she goes, well, we don't do loans because we want students to go away and be able to do ministry without debt. And I'm like, well, how y'all expect us to go there when we ain't got no money? Like I'm from the hood, bro. And so she goes, well, this is about the amount you would need to figure out, and I probably can get you some scholarships. So I pretty much said, Moody's out, Moody's over with. Even though I wanted to go there, it looked like God closed the door. So I called Lancaster. We starting to figure it out. The financial package, great. I know some people in Philly, my favorite Christian rap groups in Philly. At this point, I had started rapping. It seemed perfect. My best friend was going there, but God would not let me stop thinking about Moody. So then she calls me back and she's like, hey, if you willing to come, I found a $1,500 scholarship for you. Tuition is only $5,000 for the semester. So I'm like, okay. My church says we'll give you $2,500. I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, man. So then I went to the banks, but the banks were like, hey, we can't really defer. That ain't our thing. We don't do that. We don't do the college loan stuff, so you have to pay it back right away. So it didn't make sense. So God pressed upon my heart to do something that I always said I never would do. The reason I said I never want to go into ministry, I had to ask for money. Oh, I had to ask for money. So I decided this is probably the best bet to go ahead and ask for money. So I started asking friends and family, passing out letters, and slowly stuff started coming in. Still not quite enough to go, but money's coming in for me to go to college. And when I really knew that this was the right move, even though the scholarship board was kind of like, maybe you should just do Lancaster because the money ain't there. Even when it seemed like it didn't make sense, was when I went to church that last Sunday before I left. There was one lady who came up to me. She grabbed my hands and she said, I believe in you. Don't waste my money. And she gave me a check to go to college. And I said, man, like she really believed in me. But the kicker was the very last person. I was walking out the door and it was a little older white woman. She has special needs, so she kind of slurs when she talks. And she's like, CW, I wanted to give you something. And she gave me $2. $2 single dollars for me to go to college. And I wanted to give it back to her like, no, keep your money. But I felt like God was pressing upon me to keep the money and to show me I'm going to provide, even from the least of people, from places you don't expect it. And I'm not going to just do it, I'm going to overdo it. And I tell you, throughout college, I paid my tuition on time every semester. There was one time I was down $2,000 and I went to my mailbox and there was a check for $2,000 from a doctor I never met. Praying for you, thinking about you. You don't know me, but I love you. There was one time I went to go check my bill and they was like, oh, somebody paid your bill. They put $3,000 on it. I didn't even know where it came from. God just overdid it. And the number one kicker was I got to the point where I was like, God, I don't want to be single no more. You know, I want to honor you and be pure. It's hard, though, for a brother out here in these streets. Can you give me a wife? And I met my wife. She came the following semester. She had never dated before, never even kissed a boy. And she became my wife eventually. God didn't just do it, he overdid it. And so the reason I give you this section of my story is because I want to encourage you that even when it feels like it doesn't make sense, even when you feel like giving up, God won't just do it, he'll overdo it if you trust him. If you put your little Lunchable in the master's hand, he'll take it and he'll multiply it to feed 5,000. We watch it over and over. Let's go to the next slide. We'll try to zoom through these next ones. Facing my demons. An earlier part of my journey that I didn't share, and a lot of this is in my book, so if you want to read in depth about it, you can get the book. But facing my demons was a challenging period in my life because early on, probably around when I was 5, I was playing with my brothers in my grandmother's house. And we were wrestling in the closet, hit a wall, and a bag came down, a black bag with tapes in it. Unzipped the tapes, and I saw the label XXX on them. I had no idea what that meant. I just knew my mama said never watch the tapes that say XXX. I popped one in, and it was pornography. I'm 5. From that day forward, sex was like the battle of my life. Remember, I told you I met my wife. It was the opposite for her. So that even caused tension in our early relationship. Like, my wife is the one person I dated where it was completely pure. Like, I didn't see anything before we got married. Like, it was just like, I knew that this was a God thing because it forced me to fight for her in ways that I hadn't fought for other women before. But this was a demon that God forced me to face and is continuing to force me to face. And the reason I'm sharing this part of my story with you is to encourage you that we all have things in our lives, whether it's our own doing or someone else doing, that will continue to plague us. And they will plague us the rest of our journey. They will be a thorn in our side. But that doesn't mean we give up on our walk. That doesn't mean we don't continue facing our demons and continue fighting. And so we got to continue to fight. And I'll tell you, this was the best decision I ever made in my life. My wife is a gift that I didn't deserve and that I didn't expect. And often she makes me feel like Paul when he says, I'm the chief of all sinners, right? Like, how could God give me such a beautiful gift when I'm the chief of all sinners? But I'm grateful that he did. Let's go to the next slide. So this is just an excerpt from the book where I kind of talk about that whole tension in my relationship of opening the door to something that I wasn't ready for. Let's go to the next one. We'll go to the next one after that one. All right, elephants and stallions. So I am around 26, and I'm at this crossroads in my job where high school ministry is starting to get it's a little tumultuous for me. Because of high school ministry, I can't go on tours as a hip hop artist, and it's picking up like crazy. I had to cut stuff because, you're busy with kids in the summer. The high school jokes just aren't funny. Y'all know, if you got younger siblings, they tell them same jokes you told when you was in high school, and you're like, come on, bro, that's whack. Like, chill out. Don't do that. But, like, imagine that every year for 7-8 years of your life, right? So I was at a crossroads where I knew my time was up in youth ministry, but I didn't know where my next check would come from. I didn't make enough money with music to just step out on the boat and do it, step off the boat and do it. And so I had these brothers keep coming up to me like, yo, you got to go on this trip called the Crucible. Crucible. And I kept hearing men that I respected all around the city telling me about the Crucible. And I said, what's the Crucible? And their response, every one of them was positive. And they were like, yeah, man, I was crying like just bawling. And I'm like, man, what is this Crucible thing? So I get to the Crucible. When I get there, there's this white guy, and he has a still face, and he just look at me. He's just staring at me, and I'm like, Dad, what did I do? Is he about to send me away? I drove 2 hours to get to this place. And he goes, what are you here for? What are you here for? And I said, I'm just trying to figure out what's next for me. I'm trying to hear from God if I should leave my job or should I stay. And he looks at me like I gave the wrong answer. And then he says, move on to the next man. And so I go to the next room, and this guy hands me an index card. And he goes, take a walk and choose an animal. That's it. Take a walk and choose an animal. So I'm walking around this dark camp like as a dark-skinned man in the woods, and I'm like hoping somebody with some sheets don't pop out. But I'm just walking around with this card, and I don't know what to say. I don't know what does he mean, choose an animal. And the only animal I could think of that defined me in that moment was an elephant. Because if you know anything about circus elephants, when they're really little, they're nailed down so that somebody will tie their leg up to it. They'll tie a chain around their leg, and then they'll chain the other end of that chain. They'll nail it down to a peg in the ground so the elephant can't move. Elephant will try to run away, and you get stuck. But when it gets older, because the elephants have such an amazing memory, but yet they don't have an attitude of trying to push past something that they are used to seeing as a roadblock, it will stay trapped. So you can use the same type of chain, same peg, same situation when the elephant is 2-3 tons heavier and it still won't try to get away. And I felt like that was me with my gifts. I felt like that was me with my complacency and moving forward and really shaking things up. Like this mighty elephant that was afraid to be an elephant. So I went through the week, I was crying like crazy, just sobbing, snot coming down my face. I mean, it was embarrassing. And the thing I realized at the Crucible was that the reason I felt like an elephant, the reason I was walking in elephantness is because of my dad. My dad is a great dude. Great personality, make you laugh, just beautiful person. But one thing about my dad that I realized I always saw was my dad would hype me up and tell me I can be anything I wanted to be and do anything I wanted to do. And I was his special little dub. I was his junior. But I never saw him do it. I never saw him beat his addictions. I never saw him chase dreams. And so I internalized, because I am CW Junior, I can't chase dreams. I can't beat addictions. And I became an elephant. And so I sat there and I wept. I wept for my dad. I wept for me. I was just stuck. And at the end of my trying, what we call it, the Crucible, the trying by the fire, and these men picking me up, they said, what animal are you now? I said, I'm not an elephant anymore. I feel like a stallion. I'm like a black stallion. Because I'm black, of course, but stallion is this horse. But a stallion, a horse is a beautiful animal because a horse is extremely powerful, but it's meek. The world sees the word meek as weak, but when you look at the Bible, the word meek actually means power under control. So that means you have all the power to do what you want to do, but yet you choose not to, like Jesus. Having all the authority you want. Horse can knock the rider off anytime, run away from the rider, but they don't because they're power under control. And that's what I wanted my gifts and personality and faith to be. How are we looking on time? I want to make sure that I'm staying in the whoop whoop. Cool. Let's go to the next one. Okay, great. You got it up already. Stepping off the boat. So I go to this crucible experience, and God confronts me. It's an amazing, powerful experience. But it actually wasn't until about 2 years later that I actually really began walking in my stallionness, so to speak. Because even when you begin to move forward, you still go back. It's still a wrestle. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. You know how I go. So I'm sitting at this coffee shop with a good friend of mine, Jonathan Brooks, and I'm just telling him, like, man, I really think I need to leave my job and pursue music, but I don't know. And he's like, well, is your wife against it? I'm like, no, she's telling me the same thing. He's like, okay. He's like, are you getting shows? I'm like, a lot of shows. Like I did 64 last year on top of working. He's like, huh, are they paying? I'm like, yeah, they paying. Then what's the problem? I'm like, I'm scared. I'm terrified. And I literally told him I'm scared. And he goes, bruh, you just got to step off the boat. And there's a story in the Bible where Jesus is asleep below the bows of the boat, and his disciples are above freaking out because the storm is getting crazy. And they're like, no, I'm sorry. The storm is getting crazy. He's not on the boat. And they're like, he sent us out here to meet him, but where is he? And the storm's going crazy, and Jesus is walking on the water. And they're like, whoa, like, is this a ghost? Like, who is this? What is this? It looks like the master. And then Jesus says that Peter's like, if you really the Lord, tell me to come out there then. You know, Peter got a big mouth. Tell me to come out there then. And Jesus is like, come on. And then Peter steps off. He takes a couple steps, and then it says that Peter begins to notice the waves and how they're blowing, and the waves are coming up and the wind is blowing, and he kind of gets scared, and he begins to sink, and he says, save me, Lord. And Jesus grabs him and pulls him up, and he says, ye of little faith. That story really stands out to me. It stood out to me when Jay said step off the boat, because Peter's the bold one. Peter's a fisherman. Like, fishermen know how to swim. Why do you need Jesus to save you? Not just that, fishermen probably are used to fishing on turbulent waters. They used to falling off the boat, but yet he's forgetting all the things that he knows as a person who owns a fishing business. Save me, Lord. And it was like I stepped out on the water, but I forgot everything that God showed me during the crucible. Everything that he was still showing me, and I was just sinking. And this was the moment where he was beginning to pull me up. So I told my job I'm leaving. Said, I'm leaving this year. And my boss said, how you going to do it? I said, with reluctancy, I'm going to actually raise the money to be an artist. So I found an organization for artists that let you raise money, and I began asking people to support me monthly. The second thing I was extremely terrified of doing, and God began to provide. I made a third of what I was making when I was working at the ministry, but I was so content. And every year God was working it out because I was willing to step off the boat. Let's go to the next slide. Along with stepping off the boat, I began to realize some unique things. So I took a trip to Poland. I did a tour. And when I was there, they were asking me all these questions about politics. What do you think about Donald Trump who's running? And do you like Obama? And what about American? I'm like, bro, like I'm not the political science major. Like I don't really know what to tell you right now other than my opinion. But when I was there, they only knew me as an American. They didn't know me as a black American, as an African. They just knew me as an American. And it blew my mind because it was the first time that I ever really felt like an American. Because in our country, I've always felt like black people are kind of like the stepchild. Like, America tolerates us, but if we're honest, that's not really American. Like, Americans are people who love the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm a Browns fan. Their favorite animal is eagles. Mine's is not. It's a lion or a stallion, somewhere in between there. They eat steaks. I like steak every once in a while, but it ain't really my thing. I know these are broad stereotypes, but this is kind of like what the media portrays as what a real American is. They like apple pie, right? And they're white. And so for me, it was like, wow, like I'm really an American. This is crazy. But then I get back to America, and I'm dealing with the tensions of Mike Brown and Philando Castile and Tamir Rice, who was murdered a few blocks from my house in Cleveland. And it all became like, man, I'm a Christian, a black American Christian, but yeah, I feel like I don't fit any group. Like, it's just like, what are you doing, God? What are you doing? And this is when God really began to stir my heart thinking about justice and his heart for it, and beginning to change my mind and forcing me to think deeply about those things. This is when I begin to find my stride. Let's go to the next one. Roses. I got this in one more section of my life that I want to share about, and then I'm going to wrap it up and let you know why I shared what I shared. This is me and my dad at my wedding when I was 25. So me and my dad began to mend our relationship, and I was working at a youth outreach in Cleveland a little bit before I left. And my dad called me. We're talking, and he says, and he seems very depressed. And at this point, he had lost his mother. He was living with his stepfather and just going to work, drinking. That was a cycle of his life. And I said, Dad, you okay? And he begins to tell me his problems. And I said, Dad, have you ever tried Jesus? Now, I shared the gospel with my dad before. He kind of brushed it off. And I said it to my dad, and he said, you know what? Tell me about that, buddy. And my ears just like perked up because I'm like, dang, God is giving me a layup here. This is crazy. Like, somebody asked me to tell him, okay, cool. So I'm like, let me take the rock and dunk it then. So I began sharing the gospel, like, okay, buddy, I got to go to the store real quick. I'll call you back. So I was like, dag, I missed my opportunity, because I knew my dad going to the store meant getting a 40 ounce and getting drunk. We weren't going to finish the conversation. He didn't call me back, but he calls me the next morning. And he's like, hey, buddy, let's continue what we talked about. And I'm shocked because he woke me up out of bed to talk about the gospel. So I share the gospel. My dad meets the Lord, gets saved, leaves drugs alone, like he literally gets saved. So a year goes by, and I'm talking to my dad while I'm in my job, and he's in another depressed state. At this point, his drinking is picked back up, his drug use, all of that. And I said, Dad, I think what God wants, and this is just me. I'm not no prophet. I'm not that type of dude who's going to tell you what I see in your life. I don't do that, at least unless God really presses upon me. But I said, I feel like you need to change the scenery. Would you be willing, and I was terrified to say this as his son because it can be disrespectful, would you be willing to leave your home and come to the men's shelter? I knew it was a good Bible-based program, and it would change his life if he was willing to come. He said, yeah. I talked to the manager, had it set up. He said, but tell him if he comes, he can't leave. Like, he's here. My dad got a garbage bag of some clothes and slept on the floor at the mission for 2 months, waiting for a bed to open up upstairs. Got in the program, did a year in the program, got completely clean of all of his drug addictions, was waking up for 5 a.m. Bible studies, going to church, was super excited about the Lord, beating my pastor to church. And it was one of the most beautiful moments I had ever seen. I had prayed for years, and to watch my dad get saved was just such a beautiful moment. A few years later, my dad went to the doctor because he was throwing up brown stuff. And when he got there, they said, you have stage 4 cancer in your stomach. He had been going to the doctor for years prior, and they were just telling him it's just morning sickness, just take some Tylenol. Just completely neglecting him. Cancer's building up. So my dad they told him you got a year to live. He ended up dying in 6 months. I sat at my dad's funeral. I actually preached my dad's funeral. and to hear the lives that he touched with the little time that he knew the Lord, the smiles that he brought to people's faces, the genuineness that he brought, it was just such a gift to me. My dad wasn't perfect, but he was perfect for me. My dad didn't do a lot of things right, but hearing and seeing his life unfold and getting to be a part of the most important decision he ever made was life-changing. And I don't know where you are in your journey, in your walk. For some of you may not know the Lord. For some of you, you know him, and it's kind of like, it feels like more of an acquaintance. For some of you, you super excited about him. You're trying to continue growing. But if you'll take hold of this truth and really grow in your walk with the Lord, God will give you some opportunities that you never thought would happen. He won't just do it, he'll overdo it. I'm living proof as an imperfect man. I got issues. My wife would be the first to tell you. But God is willing to use us. Let's go to the last slide. One up, I'm sorry, one above. One more above. Just wanted to show you a picture of my family real quick. Ooh, okay, well, y'all can come see it. You can come see my computer if you want, but I want to show you my beautiful daughter and wife. So this right here is my latest album. It's a live album. It's called Still Dreaming. And it's me reflecting on life and everything that's going on around me. But there was a lot of things I almost quit on. But by God's grace, he's allowed me to continue this journey, which is a marathon. And I get the beautiful pleasure of being a father to a 2-year-old, a husband to a wife of almost 10 years, as a person who was impure and struggling with my sexuality in a big way, just womanizing. But God has changed my heart, and he's continuing to change my heart. And he's willing to do the same thing for everybody in here, if we're willing to accept that and step into it. So I have a few questions for you here. You can come take a screenshot of it before you step into your small groups. But just for you to reflect on our time together, but then also just to encourage and push you maybe in areas that you hadn't thought about for your own journey. So thank you so much for allowing me to share with you. Let me pray for you, and then I'll invite your leaders up to give you the next directions. Lord, thank you so much for your goodness. Thank you for saving us. Thank you that you are a patient, faithful God who doesn't just do it, but overdoes it. Lord, you take people who the world looks at and says shouldn't have any place in you, and you do great things with them. Lord, you take small amounts of money and you create educations and systems for people to make you more famous. Lord, you don't just do it, you overdo it. So God, would you help us to live lives that honor you and that expect for you to do big things so that you can be made more famous. In Jesus' name, amen.
Connection leaders should have the questions already sent to them, so you all know what to do. Be sure we're going to come back and finish with the music, but afterwards, be sure to come talk to Piper and CW too, and show them more, all right? Great.
Alrighty, is everyone in here? It seems like we have a lot of people. Are all the groups back? Okay. What?
I have this confidence because I've seen the faithfulness of God that's still inside the storm, the promise of the shore. I trust the power of your word, enough to seek your kingdom first, beyond the barren place, beyond the ocean waves. When I walk through the waters, I won't be overcome. When I go through the rivers, I will not be drowned. My God will make a way, so I am not afraid. You keep the promises you make. There isn't one that is delayed, so I will not lose heart. Here I will lift my arms and start to sing to the night. My praise will call the sun to rise, declare the battle won, declare that it is done. When I walk through the waters, I won't be overcome. When I go through the rivers, I will not be drowned. My God will make a way, so I am not afraid. When I am in the fire, I will not feel the flame. I'll stand before the giant, declaring victory. My God will make a way, so I am not afraid. Before me, behind me, always beside me. No shadow, no valley where you won't find me. No, I am not afraid. Before me, behind me, always beside me. No shadow, no valley where you won't find me. No, I am not afraid. I am not afraid. When I walk through the waters, I won't be overcome. When I go through the rivers, I will not be drowned. My God will make a way, so I am not afraid. When I am in the fire, I will not feel the flame. I'll stand before the giant, declaring victory. My God will make a way, so I am not afraid. My God will make a way, so I am not afraid.
I never heard a sweeter voice. It made my aching heart rejoice. Oh, the love that sought me. Oh, the blood that bought me. Oh, the grace that brought me to the fold of God. Grace that brought me to the fold of God. Upon His grace I'll ponder and sing anew His praise. With all adoring wonder, His blessings I retrace. All right, sing it out. It seems as if eternal days are far too short to sing His praise. Oh, the love that sought me. Oh, the blood that bought me. Oh, the grace that brought me to the fold of God. Grace that brought me to the fold of God. The love that sought me. Oh, the blood that bought me. Oh, the grace that brought me to the fold of God. Grace that brought me to the fold of God. Amen. All right, that's what we have for you guys tonight. Actually, there is one more thing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Addie. Happy birthday to you. Woo! All right, thanks for coming, you guys. Love you all. If you have any questions for Piper or CW, make sure to let them know.